Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement, your no-hype source for financial advice and making informed choices about your retirement planning. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, hello, St. Louis, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement, your live and local favorite financial call-in show. I'm Jeff Lapidus, president of JBL Financial Services. Our offices are located in beautiful downtown Olivet, Missouri. I'm a 40-plus year veteran of the financial services area, a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager. And I'm joined this week and every single week by my crew. My very favorite oldest prodigal daughter, Aaron Lapidus, who also is a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager, and Robert Markham, our life insurance and fixed annuity specialist. Good morning, gang.
Good morning.
Good morning. We help our clients make smart choices about their money. The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a written step-by-step strategy, a real game plan that has several goals in mind.
First is to preserve, protect, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate. Second is to deliver a reliable stream of income, one that they can count on, so they can do all the things they'd like to do during retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to supplement their medical coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love, whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, whoever it might be, with Uncle Sam or the tax courts taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth managers, Aaron and I watch their money every single day to make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us retirement coaches. Well, it's another beautiful day in the neighborhood. Saturday.
Good morning.
Good morning. At least the sun came up this morning. I'm real happy about that.
Yeah, it was almost
How's
60,
the weather out there?
It was almost 60 degrees yesterday.
Fabulous. Well, congratulations. I guess all the snow's melted and nice and wet. And this Saturday morning, and we're ready and we're live and local. We'd love to hear from you. Our phone lines are open, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. And as a reminder, all of our clients are folks like you. They're our listeners. They're 55 and older. They like to retire or they're already retired. And as Aaron mentioned, our goal is to create a game plan for them so they can have a fun and hopefully successful and worry-free retirement. Before we get into taking your phone calls and text messages, we do want to remind everybody that there's lots of ways for you to keep in touch with us during the week.
That's right. Just log on to our website, jblfinancial.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you can click on the Contact Us section. Send us an email with a question, a request for a coaching session, financial or Medicare, or both. Or you can click on the lower left-hand side of the screen in the pop-up box that appears that says sign up for our monthly newsletter, and we'll send that out to you every single month by mail, or email, rather.
And Aaron and her staff do keep the last 6 to 8 months of the archive for your printing, viewing, or downloading convenience. The other thing is that you can hit the Contact Us section, right, babe?
That's right. In the upper right-hand corner of the screen, you can click Contact Us and send us an email. You can even send us a question during the show. We check those. Or you can sign up for a coaching session, financial, Medicare, or both.
Yes, and they're at our offices in Clayton. And as we like to say, we've got the best coffee in town, free parking, nice and easy to get to, and certainly we'd love to visit with you if you are in that time frame. You're thinking about things. And I was going to say, while we're waiting for your phone calls, as well as your text messages, again, 5877 or 84126 from the text line. I would like to share an email that I received this week. We managed to get through the server past Aaron. Not an easy task, of course. And it goes like this. Jeff, I'm 65 years old. My wife is 63. I've been listening to you and Aaron for several years. I really enjoy the show. Thank you. It makes me think, what should we be thinking about for 2023 if this is a year I want to retire? Great question, right?
That is a great question. Sounds like someone's a planner as well.
There you go. And we really think that there are several things that you want to consider here in your thought process. The first one certainly has to be, do you have a secure foundation for your planning?
Right, and that really leads into a conversation about the different type of insurance that you might need, and you probably do need in retirement. First and foremost is, do you have a health care plan that fits your needs? This can look a lot different for people depending upon when they plan to retire, if they have a spouse, when the spouse plans to retire, if they happen to already be retired, because we have a lot of options in terms of transitioning from group health insurance through your employer to either individual insurance if you are under 65 or transitioning directly to Medicare if you happen to be Medicare eligible already. So planning out retirement dates, really, I think that quite a few people have this top of mind. How are we going to pay for our health insurance, especially if you're in that range of under 65 years old? Health insurance, be it COBRA or individual policies, can be pricey for a few years, so it's important to factor that cost into your cash flow game plan.
No question about that. And certainly there's some other, we think of them as secure foundational things. One of them is life insurance. Are you taking your company's group health or group life insurance plan with you? Do you have a sufficient amount? Do we need to repurpose the life insurance that you have? Going on, same with that, is also about long-term care. Have you made provisions for long-term care? Are we going to be self-funding or taking maybe a company-sponsored health insurance product with us? Or is there a gap there? And then finally, legal documents. Do I have the right legal foundation so that the rest of my game plan can really comfortably fit there? And frankly, make sure that the wishes that you have will be fulfilled at the time you pass away.
And this is really right. Go ahead.
Go ahead, babe. No, babe, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and this is part of an ongoing conversation that we often have with prospective and current clients, especially surrounding legal documents. Do you have your will in place, which really comprises those two pieces that you were just talking about, Dad, the durable power of attorney and the medical directive? But then are you a family that may be in need of a trust for whatever reason that might be, or are you able to avoid probate by creating beneficiary designations on all of your accounts, making sure that those beneficiary designations really match what your long-term goals are?
I just had this conversation with my dad a couple days ago about titling the accounts TOD. Because we have new accounts, so it definitely is an ongoing conversation that you're going to have to revisit ever so often as you go on and go through.
Rob, there's no question about that. And we also find that, folks, they create new accounts. They change banks. They change brokerage firms. Maybe they change company pension plans. And we're not only talking about not only the POD designation that's extremely important, especially for those assets that don't already have beneficiary designations, but how about contingent beneficiaries? What if your primary beneficiary predeceases you? Who are the people that you want to step in place to become the primary beneficiaries later? So none of this has to do with managing your money. What it really do is making sure that you really have a sound and secure, and that's extremely important. Now, Aaron and I, we don't do the work because we're not attorneys, but we certainly want to make sure that all those ducks are in order, and we keep on our folks, don't we?
That's right. We try to review beneficiary designations at least once every 2 years with all of our clients to make sure that they still reflect what the original goals were. We're also having ongoing conversations with clients that may be in a position where their family has expanded over time and they're looking to add beneficiaries or change designations for their family members on their accounts.
So, assuming that you've got your foundation secure, at least you've had them reviewed, then we really get to be talking about your money, which is getting your portfolio ready for retirement. Have you rebalanced it? We know that rebalancing has a lot of very beneficial things that go along with that. We're capturing gains, and many times we're also realigning our portfolio with our risk tolerance. We know recently the market, obviously, for many folks has helped us do that, maybe not in a happy way. But we also like to think about, tactical rebalancing, which is trying to take advantage of specific aspects of the market where we think maybe there's a reason to have a little bit more emphasis, add some growth, or even an income component. And naturally, we like to think you have to have some cash aside, money aside, to have a little bit of fun. That's what retirement's all about. So the big thing here is, folks, I think it's extremely important that you consider getting a second set of eyes on your situation. Get an outside perspective. Visit with the professionals you currently have in place today. Make sure that your game plan is ready so that when you decide you want to make that transition to retirement, you want to leave your current employment, et cetera, you'll be in a position to do that. And if you don't have someone, you still need help, you know what to do. You can always pick up the phone and give us a call, 314-863-0008, or send us an email, Jeff or Aaron at jplfinancials.com. We'd love to see you for a coaching session. And if not, you can always go to our website and hit the Contact Us section and tell us a little about yourself, and our staff will be very happy to give you a call to arrange a coaching session with us, which is fun. So that was a good email. Really enjoyed receiving that one. And I love the fact that they mentioned you, honey.
Aw, thank you.
It's hard to be second. Mention? Well, that's right. It's hard to be second fiddle these days. What can I tell you?
Oh, come on now. Second fiddle. Everyone's asked where you are, when you plan to return from California, probably because they're jealous of the weather.
Who's that guy in his office?
Right.
Well, that's nice, but I understand that your mother told me the other day that you said, well, you can keep Dad out there for a while. I don't think so. I'm jumping on the bit, ready to come back and see everybody, but we've been extremely busy. It's the beginning of the year. This is the time of the year that we're visiting with clients, and not necessarily on a top priority basis, but what's real important is for us to, we feel it's one of our missions, is to talk to our clients about required minimum distributions when they get to, now it's age 73. Some folks have begun distributions from retirement plans. Some have actually aged in. The laws have changed over the last 3 years, so understanding what those distributions are, what their options are, making sure that we've got a game plan to cash flow it to them at the time that they want to, extremely important. And the nice thing is that for most folks, the custodians that you're using, those folks that you have money with, they're providing that information to you in January, and our staff is accumulating that information so that we can be ready to go. And I know that I've been having many conversations with folks that aren't coming into the office this week. But, honey, you were just jam-packed this week. It was great.
It really was great. On the required minimum distribution note, I have noticed that, unfortunately, the law passed a little bit too close to the end of the year, changing that requirement from 72 to 73. So if you are 72, you may still be receiving a letter in the mail that says this is what your required minimum distribution is. You want to check with your advisor or the custodian that you received that letter from to be sure that you don't need to take your required minimum distribution. So that letter was probably generated a little bit premature.
Yeah, well, it's hard for the custodians to keep up, as you said, honey, with congressional action, especially when it's late in the year. But the IRS knows what's going on, so it's all
right.
good.
But just to point out, because we've already received a few, we sent out an email to all of our clients that are 72 this year just to let them know that, you get to push this off for one more year, so not to worry. But we still saw some letters come through from insurance companies that reflected, what the requirement for 72 is. So just to let people know, the insurance companies and other custodians were legally required to send those out in a certain amount of time. So that's why things got a little bit crossed in the mail, I guess you could say.
Well, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line. Or as Aaron said, you can always send us an email, Aaron or Jeff at jblfinancial.com, and we'll be happy to pick you up and talk about a little bit about that on the show. And it's fun. Many of the questions and topics that we talk about during our show come directly from emails and also from coaching sessions that we have with current clients and prospective clients. And I know that, again, while we're waiting for your calls at 931-5877 or 84126 from the text line, that we had a really interesting, or Aaron and Rob had a very interesting coaching session with Henry last week. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And like you said, we had a wonderful meeting with Henry this week. And Henry's a retired scientist and professor. He still lectures on occasion at the university, very active. And Henry needed some advice on what to do now that he sold his winter home in California. In your neck
he had to flee the state.
I hate to, what made you leave? The tent city that went up, across the street from my house. So we didn't really touch too much on that. But he did sell his home in California, and the sale of the property netted him $500,000 that he was unsure what to do with. And Henry's in a great place in the sense that he does not need an additional income stream.
From this money?
He does not. And he's been watching the volatility in the stock and bond market and was hoping to invest without adding any additional risk. And, he casually remarked to us that he'd love to leave it in his savings account, but for the fact that it wasn't really paying anything. Yeah.
Gotcha. At least until the market stabilizes, probably.
Yeah. I mean, that was our thinking. So, we considered a two-tier approach for Henry. Let's ride the current interest rate wave in a high-yielding money market account with a portion of the money until the stock market settles down, bond market settles down.
And, people have probably noticed if you already are utilizing a money market account, or maybe you've gone to a money market account website, that frequently they are sending emails to update their interest rate. So with money market accounts, those rates are never fixed. They're able to be raised and lowered at the custodian's will. So we've seen in the past that, we've seen in the recent past that money market accounts have been starting to earn more interest over time.
So in addition,
I was just going to say, I know that one of the most popular ones that we've been discussing with clients is earning in excess of 3%. Which is fabulous, and again, it makes you feel not so bad of having your money parked while you're waiting for maybe the markets to settle a little bit. But I know, Rob, that after you queried him, we had a discussion about this, is that Henry really felt like it was appropriate and it was okay to invest some of this money for an intermediate term period, because he didn't need, not only did he need the income, but he also really didn't see any need for the capital.
Absolutely. And he was most concerned with what you would call principal protection at this point. He really didn't want to expose it to the volatility that we've seen in the markets over the last year. So the money market portion, high-yielding money market account, was very appealing. And taking another portion and locking it up into, for a short period of time, without risk to the principal, in a fixed annuity was also appealing. And after consulting with Jeff and Aaron, I suggested we take half of the $500,000 and purchase a 5-year fixed annuity. It would credit 4.95% annually, and the interest would grow income tax deferred. This would translate to an after-tax rate of almost 6%, much higher than anything being offered today.
Yeah, 6% is rarefied air these days, but again, because the annuity interest is growing income tax deferred and the IRS isn't forcing you to take that interest out or actually recognize it as income, for Henry, we're kind of be able to hit, I think, two things here. Number one is reasonable safety of principal, because again, those investments, the fixed annuity is really invested in the general assets of the insurance company, reasonably protected from risk. And then also the interest-growing income tax deferred really created a after-tax yield that was certainly something to consider.
And Aaron's going to read it. Oh, I thought Aaron was going to read a short disclosure.
Dad, you covered this disclosure pretty well in that explanation, so I don't think I need to bore the audience with more.
Awesome. And, Henry was receptive, but, he's heard these annuities have a reputation, and, that reputation reared its head, and he said, I've heard these contracts can be restrictive, they're heavily loaded with fees, very hard to get out of. Is that true? And, I explained that this contract was limited to 5 years. At the end of the 5-year period, you could request 100% of the contract value without penalty or fee. During the 5-year period, you could withdraw 10% a year. So at the end of the contract, or for the life of the contract, you could take out 50% without penalty. So it's much more liquid than any CD offered at a bank or a credit union.
And it's really important to just keep in mind that you want to discuss with a professional the specifics of the contract that either you have brought to their attention or they have brought to your attention, because they all have different features that can work in different ways. This one works as described.
I think it's important here that the recommendations that we made in this case for Henry, as well as for other clients, I like to say that we're doing them in the moment. I mean, right now, the bond markets are still unsettled. The probability of interest rate raises continuing to happen through the future is certainly possible, and the reason being is that the Fed, in one of their key things that they're supposed to do, is they've told us is they want to deal with inflation and getting the rate down. The way that they do that is by raising interest rates as a way to basically stifle or reduce economic activity. And we know that the relationship between bond prices, the value of them, and interest rates are really inverse. So as interest rates rise, what happens is the value of bonds go down. Because Henry really didn't want to put his principal at significant risk at this particular moment in time, it really wasn't a good recommendation for him to even look at either an immunized bond portfolio or even a high-grade corporate bonds as just as examples of other things that they could look at, because of the potential reduction of what we saw in bond values, and especially last year, bond funds lost money, and the reason they did was we saw rates escalating very quickly. And generally, what happens is that for every 1% that interest rates rise, bond values can go down as much as 10%. So it's something that we obviously recognize. We made some changes in our client portfolios last year, and we certainly weren't going to put Henry back into the frying pan as an option.
No, certainly not. And Henry was pleasantly surprised, was interested, and he'll be stopping back next week, hopefully to discuss further. And with that, why don't we take our first break of the hour? We'll be right back after these messages. Don't touch that dial.
Are you a former smoker? The lawyers at Teen Malone are bringing cases against Big Tobacco to hold them accountable for their wrongdoings. If you or a loved one have recently been diagnosed with a smoking-related illness, such as bladder cancer, throat cancer, lung cancer, or COPD, please call 314-800-1117 or visit teenmalone.com/smoking-lawsuit to learn more. That's 314-800-1117. There's no cost to speak with us. It's almost time to play. We're talking affordable family fun in the sun and on the water with a fishing or pedal Hobie kayak. From RTP Outdoors in Valley Park, you'll find a wide variety of Hobie kayaks in all the cool colors. At RTP Outdoors, everything from recreational all the way up to the Hobie sporting and fishing kayaks. Your outdoor fun begins with a Hobie kayak from RTP Outdoors at 427 West Outer Road in Valley Park. RTP Outdoors.
God, I'm so stressed. It's a brand new year and our business is busier than ever.
Ooma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending the Ooma cloud phone system with auto attendant and more than 35 features.
Ooma?
Yep. Switching to Ooma is a cinch. Starts at $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Now you're feeling it. Visit Ooma.com. That's OOMA.com to learn more. Ooma. Smart communications for the smarter business.
Whenever there's a mission of need in our community, KTRS is always leading the parade.
And this time, we asked you to join us during the KTRS Radiothon to support Backstoppers.
Backstoppers showed up, and they reassured me I had nothing to worry about.
The generous support from our sponsors and you will help the Backstoppers continue their mission to be the safety net for fallen first responders in Missouri and Illinois.
Whatever money you donate, it'll be money well managed and well spent on these families.
The KTRS Radiothon to support Backstoppers.
Thank you. Thanks.
Because KTRS cares. Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, welcome back to Straight Talk on Retirement. It's 5:30. I'm sorry.
Is it
over here it's 5. I don't know. It's what's funny is that I've got the world time clock here on my computer, and
so
it
it's
just
5:30 somewhere.
Yeah, in Kiev, etc. At this point in the Ukraine, but we know that it's. What can I tell you? It's 9:32. So welcome back to the show.
You know what, Jeff, we've got like a ton of text questions that have just been flooding in during the break.
All right, let's get
right. That's fabulous. That's fabulous. Before we get to our first one, I just want to mention that based on one of the last spots that was run, Backstoppers, please support these folks. These are the frontline people that are basically protecting you, your police, your firemen.
Isn't it to aid
things
their
happen,
families?
Things happen to them and they aid their families. It's so important. We've been big supporters of them for years, and it's so great that the station is getting behind these folks. And open up your wallets and give them a call. Give them a call during the telethon because it's just such an important organization.
All right,
let's go to our text. Let's go to our text questions, babe.
Absolutely, and the first one says, "Good morning. What is the upside or downside of owning I-bonds? We would be purchasing with extra money we have on hand. My husband and I are 8 months from retirement. Thank you."
I mean, to start things off, what I would say is, I-bonds have a limitation per tax ID number. So per your Social Security number, you can only purchase about $15,000 per person. I believe it's 10 paper, 5 electronic, and so it is a nice
per year,
right? My apologies. Per year, it is a nice way to earn a little bit extra interest on potentially money that you aren't using, because it's very important to keep in mind that these bonds do have liquidity restrictions. They need to be held for 5 years, or the penalty is that you'll pay back the previous 3 months of interest that was earned in order to get out of them. So, like the texter mentioned, this is extra money on hand. I would just want to make sure that that's truly extra money since you're so close to retirement. Is that going to be part of your cash flow game plan of after-tax money in retirement before you lock it up for the full 5 years?
I want to add a little. I want to rain on this parade a little bit, if I can. You know, what truly is an I bond? An I bond is a long-term, discounted Treasury security. It's a 30-year bond that's discounted. So what's happened is that as inflation was roaring its head, and we think that we've seen the peak on inflation, what happened is that those bonds, the value of those bonds was linked to those. So it's sort of like watching a train. Once it passes you, it's a little difficult to catch up with it. So have we really seen the potential for the maximum growth in those bonds? And I think the answer may be yes, because at the end of the day, the coupon rate on those bonds are based on 30-year treasuries. We're 30-year treasuries. They're 2 or 3% on the top end. So I would suggest that, you know, the 7, the 9%, et cetera, numbers that were being thrown out many months ago don't truly exist right now, and I would be very careful about this. And again, as Aaron said, there's also the liquidity feature. You know, if you're looking at buying these for yield, you have to remember that if you don't carry them through the holding period, what will happen is that the interest penalty is going to be 3 months, which could be significant. I would certainly suggest that one thing to consider, and this really came from our last discussion, which was maybe it makes sense to ride the interest rate wave for those dollars, earning a high current rate of interest, and then possibly either when interest rates peak or high-grade, intermediate, or short-term corporate bonds are starting paying some very decent yields in the 4, 5, 6% area. That might be a time where you consider moving over to something that truly doesn't have the growth effect. And honestly, over the last 10 years, I bonds have really been, I don't want to say non-existent, but truthfully they've been pretty non-existent because interest rate was, inflation was running almost at a zero rate for 3 to 4 years before this last year. Would you agree, babe?
Absolutely. But, you know, it's people looking to find some return in unlikely places. So, you know, as the environment changes, sometimes the focus of products changes. I just think it's important to keep in mind that because you have such a low threshold for how much each individual can purchase per year, this really isn't a fixed income strategy. It's just a minor piece for most people.
Right, a diversifier, which is never a bad thing. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. We do have some more text messages to address, but we can always take more. 314-931-5877 or 84126. From the Aaron Controlled and Rob Red. Excellent.
And going right back to the text line, we have another texter that says, good morning.
Good morning.
As far as paying some taxes while I'm working or lessening the taxes for heirs, is selling stock, then repurchasing the same stock to establish a new cost basis a strategy or going down the wrong path? I know every situation is different. Thank you.
Well, I thought you were going to jump right in on that one, Dad, but I would just say, first of all, we have many clients that are concerned about paying taxes in retirement, and I would say, and Dad, you say this pretty frequently, which is automatically when you retire, your tax bracket most likely will drop because you're not going to be funding your gross income anymore. You're going to be funding your net spending, which generally means that you will have less income over the course of the year. So any tax strategies in order to reduce taxes in the long run, I think in most people's cases, beginning those strategies after retirement, not while you're still earning income, usually is the first step.
Couldn't agree more, babe. I guess, what was going through my mind as Rob was reading this was that selling something and paying the capital gains and then repurchasing it so that it could then go on as an inheritance is absolutely the wrong thing to do. And the reason is that, assuming that you own these stocks in a non-retirement portfolio, like an investment fund, a brokerage account, what happens is that your death, those stocks will pass on to the people that you love with a step up in basis to the fair market value at the date of death. So you haven't really helped them. By making that sale and rebuying it, you've actually been a very good and patriotic citizen because you give Uncle Sam tax money. But frankly, if you were to decide that a certain amount of that portfolio is to go to them at death, and then obviously other is maybe investment money per se that can be, I don't want to say churned, but certainly can be turned over and reinvested. I would look at it in that perspective. So don't do it. I mean, if I had my buzzer, I would be.
Oh, we got to get one of those.
Really, really good thinking. Sounds like a good idea, but the thing is that you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. But I love the fact that that was a good question because it really gave us an opportunity to talk about the step up in basis, which unfortunately it seems like the Congress, in their desire to continue to spend money they don't have, and also to take more money from us or confiscate, as many people think it is, they keep bringing up the step-up in basis and wanting to get rid of it. And fortunately, there's enough pushback that hopefully won't happen for a long time, and hopefully during my lifetime, because the estate tax itself, because of the exemption level that we're at now, where you can basically have, it's about $12 million per person that you can pass tax-free on to federal state tax-free onto your heirs, is fabulous. I guess I hope we don't get in trouble, but with compliance. But we do have clients, okay? We do have them, and we don't have any that are falling under that $24 million estate size. So in reality, our clients are regular folks just like us. They're saving money after taxes. They save, et cetera. They're hoping that money's going to grow. They're not making these sales during their lifetime because they love the growth, and at the same time, they know at this moment that they don't have to do it because they have a step up in basis at the date of death. As an aside to that, which is also interesting, is that in many cases when we do bring on new clients, they happen to have accounts at either brokerage firms, typically it's brokerage firms, where they don't have the recorded cost basis data because those accounts maybe have moved one or two times, and the custodians weren't required to keep that cost data up to date. So making a sale is something they don't want to do because they don't want to have to try to go back and try to figure out when did they buy it, how much what it was, what were the accumulated dividends that they've already paid tax on, et cetera. It's just a mess. So that's my mutsy for the day. What can I tell you?
Well, we've got another great great tax question on deck.
And the texter writes, we were thinking of doing a Roth conversion. Yikes. In the 24% tax bracket for the next 3 years, not to go over $300,000 a year. We're not going to use it for 18 years or more. Is it worth it? Do you have a good Roth IRA conversion calculator you recommend to help us make our decision? Thank you.
I'm not saying anything, honey. I'm going to let you start.
You're going to let me take this one? Okay. Well, first, lean away from the microphone for me. And then, secondly, I would say that, this is a difficult question. A lot of people have concern, like we've talked about, with taxes in retirement and it sounds like if you're in the 24% tax bracket, most likely you might not be retired quite yet. My first question would be, do you have the money to pay the taxes on this conversion outside of your IRA account? So, for example, if you're going to take $100,000 and convert that into a Roth, the $100,000 isn't truly $100,000 inside of the Roth. It's really, what is it, $76,000 that would end up in the Roth account. So I guess the idea is you're going to wait the 18 years to hopefully regrow that $24,000 plus the interest that you would have, or the growth that you could have earned off of that. I would say that's first an important thing to consider. The second thing to consider is that there are less expensive ways if you are concerned about your heirs paying taxes in order to create tax-free benefits for them. You know, when you're paying taxes, I like to say you're paying dimes on the dollar. But when you are potentially looking at a life insurance contract that could create a tax-free death benefit for your heirs to pay those taxes on your IRA accounts, then you're paying pennies on the dollar in order to secure that. So usually that's the math that we like to do with individuals. So your premium would be significantly less than the taxes that you're going to pay in the conversion.
So we use life insurance to pay for the taxes on this? That's a wonderful idea.
Or the other thing to consider is that if you're concerned about you having to pay taxes in retirement, we find that most of our clients fall within the 10 to 15% tax bracket, and that's because, like we discussed with the last texter, your income is going to drop in retirement because you don't live off the gross of your pay. You live off the net. So if we fund to the net of your pay, which would most likely equate to the majority of your spending, then we know that your tax bracket's naturally going to drop. So if this then becomes something that you're still interested in doing, why don't you pay 10 to 12%, maybe at most 15% on conversions in retirement versus paying 24% while you're still working?
All very good arguments. What came to mind for me was, does your employer offer you a Roth 401k option? It certainly would make sense to make a Roth contribution instead of doing a Roth conversion.
Right. And you know what? We have a follow-up question to our previous text, which was, can you explain the step-up in basis and how it plays out, good or bad?
Yeah, the step-up in basis is a reasonably simple concept, but you have to be, and again, it isn't a matter of you being careful because the step-up occurs when you're dead. Okay, so what happens is the code says is that all assets that are not in retirement accounts, that are not treasuries, that are not annuity contracts, will all step up to the fair market value of the date of death. So if you have an investment account, if you purchase securities, those securities the people that inherit those securities receive them at the fair market value, the price, at the date of death. If they go to sell those securities after your death, what happens is they only pay taxes on the gain, or they may even they could have a loss from the date of death, not on the cost basis, that is what your purchase was, and or accumulated dividends. So there can be some real significant value there. This also includes a home, first residence, a second residence, etc. But it doesn't apply to annuity contracts because interest in non-retirement fixed annuities or variable annuities are growing income tax deferred. The same exemption happens with savings bonds, and those are really the biggies. And then IRAs, as we know that when someone dies with an IRA, the person that inherits that IRA has to set up what's called a beneficiary IRA, because the Internal Revenue Service looks at those IRAs as not their IRAs, but actually your IRAs that they never got their taxes on, or the taxes from. And Uncle Sam wants his money. So that's how that works. Did I miss anything there, babe?
I don't think you missed anything. And I think we should take our second break of the hour. When we get back, we still have more text questions to answer.
Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
You're sick, you feel terrible, everyone's telling you to go to urgent care. But instead of going to urgent care, what if urgent care came to you? Hi, everybody. McGraw-Millhaven here for Stay Home Medical. Stay Home Medical says it all. You stay home, and the nurse practitioner comes to you. Stay Home Medical. Think of it this way. All the things you can do in urgent care, Stay Home Medical can do from the comfort of your home. IV fluids, treatments for cold, flu, stitches, strep, COVID, UTI, ingrown toenails, rashes, poison ivy, asthma, pink eye, minor burns, bronchitis, cold sores, just to name a few. When you're sick, you don't want to leave the home. Call Stay Home Medical and stay on the couch. Trained, accredited nurse practitioners at Stay Home Medical. 314-944-3003. Call or text today. Feeling bad? StayHomeMedical.com. Stay Home Medical, a self-pay concierge urgent care. Stay home and call Stay Home Medical. 314-944-3003 or StayHomeMedical.com.
Are you tired of high prices, high pressure, and high anxiety, looking for siding, windows, doors, and decking? Silly ads claiming to give you 2 free windows, 50% off labor, or no interest payments? My grandson Elijah says,
"Are you kidding me?"
Let's talk about exterior building products that are durable, attractive, and energy efficient that increase your home's value and saves your hard-earned money. My name is Julius Korsanik. I'm celebrating 50 years in this industry. Our local and family business is Wholesale Siding Depot. Please visit our website at wsdepot.com. That's wsdepot.com. For name brand windows from Anderson and Viwinco, Certainty Vinyl Siding, Provia and Masonite doors, AZAC, Envision, Fortress, and Trex decking, to name a few. We also offer a free contractor referral service to take care of your installation and labor needs. Keep it local and professional. Please visit wsdepot.com. That's wsdepot.com.
Permajack of St. Louis is synonymous with foundation repair and basement waterproofing across the St. Louis region. They know when you get water in your basement following a storm or when the snow melts, it means you have a problem. Make sure your basement doesn't leak or flood with Permajack of St. Louis. Permajack's basement waterproofing experts can perform a complete inspection of your basement to determine the problem and design a solution to keep water from entering and damaging your home. The solution could be as simple as crack repair or a sump pump, or more comprehensive like exterior waterproofing or an internal perimeter drainage system. No matter the solution, your basement will be dry with Hometown Permajack. Schedule a free inspection and estimate by visiting permajackofstlewis.com. That's permajackofstlewis.com. Permajack, foundation repair and waterproofing. Done right.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Welcome back to Straight Talk on Retirement. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach, joined by
Aaron Lapidus, the
my able
retirement
crew.
coach. And Robert Markham.
Hopefully Rob's still awake over there. We appreciate that. It's 9:53:53. We have about 6 minutes left to answer your calls at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line for this hour. And then next hour we have the hour of power, as I like to say, our second hour Straight Talk on Retirement. Dave, do we still have some text line questions?
Yes,
we are
we do.
inundated with texts, and our next texter says, "Good morning. Could you please speak about the Medicare Part D prescription drug prices that are rising after making the plan choice with an estimate? Now the prices have gone up, as of January 2023. Thank you. Enjoy your knowledgeable show. You're very welcome.
That's such a nice compliment. So the first thing that I would say is usually the prices that were listed on the Medicare.gov website that reflect Medicare Part D prescription drug plans are not estimates. They are, in fact, what those prices should be. So the first thing that I would do is check to make sure that you are following the guidelines of the plan to get the best price that you saw while you were making your decision during open enrollment. Are you using the correct fill? For example, many of the insurance companies have moved to 90-day fills to give you the best possible price. Many of the insurance companies have moved away from requiring that it be mail order or retail. You can choose one or the other. They haven't created any additional savings by using one of those options over the other. The other thing I would make sure of is that you are using the preferred pharmacy provider. Many plans used to only use network providers, which means you could use any pharmacy that was in your plan's network and receive the same price. Now, to create some additional cost-containing measures, the insurance companies have moved to a model where you have preferred providers and then in-network providers. The preferred providers are always going to give you a better price than the in-network providers are. So those are my first two recommendations is, one, check that you're following the guidelines of the plan, both for the prescription fill amount and for where you can fill your prescriptions. And then the final thing that I would do is whomever you worked with in terms of deciding what what prescription drug plan to select was, you might want to go back to them and ask them, what is it that has made the price on this medication rise, or where did you originally get those drug quotes from, to make sure that they can explain to you what's happened. Insurance companies are able to change tiers of medications during the year. However, they usually don't do so right at the beginning of January because they want you to have the prices that they originally offered. That's what they were budgeting for. They do make changes usually mid-year in some cases if they've decided to make some drug changes.
All right.
Yeah, I think this is very important, and it's coming from, as I like to say, I don't call her the horse's mouth, but
goodness,
one of the top producers of Medicare plans in the state of Missouri, my favorite oldest prodigal daughter, Erin. So it's good advice.
And moving on to our next text question. My sister told me this week she pays $39 a month to Anthem for her Medicare, her Medicare Advantage plan. Can you tell me what the extra benefits she receives for paying that $39? Thank you.
So it sounds like your sister is on one of Anthem's PPO-style plans, which has a monthly premium associated with it. There are no additional benefits, like you don't get more dental, more vision, more hearing benefits. You don't get extra silver sneakers or anything like that. They don't have any additional add-ons for you with that $39. But basically what Anthem has said is, and most likely your sister may have chosen this plan based on the network. The PPO plans do give you in-network benefits as well as out-of-network benefits, and as many people on Medicare know, each insurance company offers a multitude of plan designs. Some of them carry deductibles, some don't. Some have different networks from one another, which can reduce or increase the price. So it may be that your sister needed to elect the Anthem PPO in order to have her physicians in the network, and Anthem determined that that particular network costs a little bit more, so they're going to have a premium associated with it. This is a great question because it really leads me to remind everyone that you have another election period if you happen to be on Medicare Advantage. It's called open enrollment, which means if you are on a Medicare Advantage plan and you're not sure it's the one that you want for the entire year, you have until March to make a decision as to if you'd like to switch to another Medicare Advantage plan. So there are other PPO plans available that do not carry any premium, and that might be a viable option. Or your sister may have already selected a plan that fits her needs the best, but it may not fit your needs the best. So it's always important to consult specifically with a professional about your specific Medicare needs. With that, we'll come back with some more Straight Talk on retirement, most specifically our Smart Choices about your healthcare segment after the...
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Straight Talk on Retirement. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Aaron Lapidus, the retirement coach.
And I'm Robert Markham, your fixed annuity and life insurance specialist.
And we're willing, waiting, and wanting to answer your questions at 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the red hot this morning text line. Before we, honey, are we going to answer text questions, or are we going to get into our Smart Choices about your healthcare segment right away?
Let's get into our Smart Choices about your healthcare segment.
Sounds good. Take it away.
So I received an email last week. Happy New Year. I remember you saying a while back you can help provide some Medicare advice when the time comes. I'm turning 65 in March, so the time has come. My wife is still working, and I'm covered through her work, so I will stay on that plan this year. Dad, are you moving? Are you leaving the condo to go elsewhere?
No.
So I will stay on the plan this year, but wanted to get some clarification on a couple of things. So this email from one of our prospective clients asks all of the right questions, so I thought it would be a good opportunity to really go through one of the scenarios in which one of the spouses retires, but another spouse continues to work. Now, our emailer, Bill, is already on his wife's coverage, so he's already done that step, but he's got a few extra questions since he's turning 65. Do I need to sign up for Medicare if I'm not going to take it? I know Part A is free, and if I sign up for that, I lose the ability to contribute to an HSA, which amounts to a tax benefit of about $750. But I could get the benefit of a secondary insurer covering hospital costs that my wife's insurance doesn't cover, like the deductible. Is that correct? Partially correct. So the first thing is absolutely correct, which is Medicare Part A is at no additional cost to you. If you do not elect Medicare or your Social Security benefit, you are not automatically enrolled in Part A. You have to request it. Some individuals elect to do this if they don't have HSA opportunities. However, our emailer, Bill, does have an HSA option available. He mentions the 1-year tax savings that he'll be able to get, which is $750. But he's also really leaving out the fact that you get a tax deduction for the contribution to your HSA, but those HSA dollars, one, you get the deduction the first year. The money inside of your HSA grows tax deferred. And then finally, when you take the money out to pay for medical expenses, that comes out tax-free, which means that it's not just the $750 that you're saving or that you would be losing. If you enroll in Medicare Part A, you're going to lose out on the rest of those opportunities. The second piece of this is if you add a secondary insurer like Medicare to your primary insurance coverage, will it help with extra medical expenses? Medicare Part A does cover your hospitalization, but it only covers 80% of the actuarial value of the claim. And basically what that means is if you're admitted to the hospital, your claim is first going to go to your primary insurer. In our emailer's case, that's his wife's coverage. If his wife's coverage pays 80% or more of the claim, then Medicare is not going to cover anything because they're going to assume that it's already been covered because it has under their guidelines. So in this emailer's case, Bill, I would say let's not sign up for Medicare Part A because it's not going to provide you with any extra benefit, and you're going to lose out on that HSA opportunity. The second question Bill had was, when I'm 66, which would be 2+ years since I retired, would it make sense to sign up for Medicare at that point because our modified adjusted income would be under the $194,000 limit? The tax benefit from the HSA, I think, would be outweighed by the better coverage because the deductible is only $233. He's considering, electing potentially a supplemental policy. Is that correct thinking? And I would say in this particular instance, that backs me all the way up to if your wife's coverage is not as good as what you can procure through Medicare, you may consider looking at your Medicare options against your wife's coverage because since you are retired, you're able to submit what's called an appeal on your income. So because the emailer's already been retired, he's lost that income from his previous years of work and can petition Medicare to say, I don't have this additional income. So please don't utilize that 2-year look back and look at my income from 2 years ago because that's not reflective of my current or future income. Now, these appeals are usually successful if the reason that you are making the appeal is because of loss of employment. That can be voluntary or involuntary, which means that you could elect to retire, or if you were unfortunately let go, Medicare does not see a distinction in those two things. They just see that you have lost that particular income. Appeals that generally don't work are things like capital gains. That could be if you took a large capital gain in a security or if you sold a secondary home which created a large capital gain for you. Medicare is not going to alleviate the additional premium that you'll have to pay because they assume you took a capital gain, which means you have the cash to pay for it, versus you no longer have the income, so you don't have the cash to pay for it. And then the final question, I was also thinking about electing a Medicare Advantage plan as we have great coverage in the area and I have no health issues to speak of. Any thoughts about this would be appreciated. So this last question is a little bit difficult to answer, especially, when we look back to our last texter's question about, electing a Medicare Advantage plan that has a premium. What are some of these extra benefits? Really, it all starts with you, which is what are your prescriptions? Who are your physicians? We want to make sure that we can match up the prescriptions that you need to find the best possible plan at the best possible price. And then secondly, make sure that you can continue to see the physicians that you've always seen. We also want to take into account any current health care needs. Are you in line for knee surgery, hip surgery? Do you have anything coming up? Do you have a chronic illness that we need to take into account? And then what we can do at our office, we have Frank, our Medicare coach, that will take that medical questionnaire, look at all of your options that are available to you, and then show you what those best choices are, both on the supplemental side and on the Medicare Advantage side, so you know what the breadth of choices that you have. We'll also take the time to really explain how the coverage works, so you're going to feel as comfortable with a Medicare policy as you do with your current employer-based policy, which really comes down to what physicians can I see, what does it cost to see them, what is my maximum liability, where can I fill my prescriptions, and how much will it cost to fill those prescriptions. So if we can get you to that place, usually when people enroll in Medicare and start to utilize their plan, there are no surprises, so that creates a lot of comfort and confidence in the system. I think that was a great lineup of questions that, if you're someone that is in this situation, you have the opportunity to either elect spousal coverage through your spouse's employer, or you're potentially looking at Medicare. It's definitely important to compare those choices, and these are some great questions to ask to really prepare you for making that decision.
And being that you mentioned Fabulous Frank, how would our listeners get in contact with him if they wanted to shoot him a quick question or set up an appointment?
Absolutely. If you'd like to set up a Medicare coaching session with Frank, please just call our office, 314-863-0008. Or you can send Frank an email. It's actually Franklin, Frank L-I-N, @jblfinancial.com. Or you're always more than welcome to go to our website, jblfinancial.com, click on that Contact Us section, and just write a quick email that says, hey, I'd like to chat with Frank about my Medicare options, and Kelly, our office manager, will give you a call to set up the best day and time for you to make sure that all of your questions are answered.
Awesome. And let's head on right back to the hot and heavy text line, and our texter says, can you give a quick comparison between FA and FIA choices?
Dad, you didn't want to jump in on this one?
FA and FIA choices. Okay, that's fine. So FA, I assume, means fixed annuity instead of do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And FIA means fixed interest or
index annuity, I guess.
Okay. So the difference between the two, I guess, is that with the general fixed annuity, the insurance company is offering you a portfolio interest rate. It's generally for either 1 year or for multiple years. And there's no linkage with anything else. With a fixed indexed annuity, what we're talking about is the interest that you're earning. One of the options could be the same as under a fixed annuity, but generally what you're purchasing this for is because you would like your interest to be linked to one of the market indexes. Generally, the S&P 500 is probably the most popular index for your interest to be linked to. And again, you're not purchasing an S&P 500 fund. What you're purchasing is the opportunity to link your return to that index. But there's a lot of caveats here, okay? I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. Generally, with a fixed index annuity, you're doing it for a period of time. It could be 1 year, it could be 2 years, or longer. You usually don't receive 100% of what the index earns. You receive a portion of that. And then sometimes there are also caps, saying you can earn up to a certain amount, let's say 3, 4, 5%. And then what happens is you're capped out.
So if you are linked to a index, so say like the S&P, and say your participation rate is, say, 8%, you'll only capture the first 8% of that gain, and say the S&P were to go up 20, the other 12% would not be credited to your account?
That would be a good example. All I would do is tell you that the
rate's never 8%.
Caps, the rate caps aren't 8% anymore. Typically, they're running around 4 to 5%. At the same time, there are some contracts that offer 100% participation, but then they have, like you said, Rob, a participation rate.
Right. I just wanted to.
It could be right. It would be. Generally, those participation rates are 25, 50%. So this is sort of in the world between having a true fixed annuity and having a variable annuity. And what I would suggest here is that these are contracts that in the past I thought were valuable. Today, I don't think they're as useful as a tool.
And, the differences don't necessarily stop with just the crediting strategy, meaning,
Yes.
The fixed annuity has a fixed crediting strategy, whereas, Dad, you just mentioned there's a fixed crediting strategy with the fixed indexed annuity. However, oftentimes it's linked to a specific index as part of your participation rate. However, fixed annuities and fixed index annuities oftentimes have very different surrender periods, meaning how long you're required to leave the money with the insurance company without creating a penalty for yourself. They also have different rules in terms of those crediting strategies. For example, fixed annuities generally work on an annual basis. Even if you've selected a 5, 7, even 10-year fixed annuity, they're going to give you a specific crediting rate every single year. The fixed indexed annuities often give you the opportunity to change your crediting strategy on different schedules. However, you have to follow the insurance company's schedule, which means if they give you the opportunity to change that crediting strategy on an annual basis, you have to make the change within a certain period of time, or you're stuck with the original crediting strategy that you selected. That isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's just very important that when you are purchasing one of these products, you understand all of the component parts and what your obligations are, as well as what the insurance company is offering.
Yes, again, and I think you make a very good point here, honey. the fixed indexed annuity contracts are complicated. I mean, they're much more complicated than a simple fixed annuity. And the only other thing that I'm thinking about with these is that the allure or the attractiveness to them is that you can participate with the S&P 500 index if the index does go up during that contract year period that you selected. But at the same time, if the index is negative, which happened in 2022, you don't earn interest, but you also don't lose any of the interest you've previously accrued. That's one of the, we'll call quote-unquote benefits of these contracts. Frankly, they're not my favorite cup of tea, as it would be. So, good question.
Excellent.
Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 314-931-5877 or 84126 from the text line.
You know what, Dad, before we get into some more of our topics for the day, why don't we take our first break of our second hour, and when we come back, we can answer some more of your text questions, your phone calls, or get into some of our topics for the day.
Sounds fabulous. Don't touch that dial, folks. We'll be right back.
Now is when a small change can make a big difference. If you're not happy with your current Medicare coverage, take a look at Coventry Healthcare. They have a wide range of plans with great service and clear costs, including medical and drug coverage in one simple plan. Just call 1-855-338-9551, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week. That's 1-855-338-9551. Now's the time to call Coventry Healthcare.
If you're turning 65 this year, you face one of the most critical choices for your retirement game plan: enrolling in Medicare Part B and choosing your Medicare supplement. I will help you safely navigate this process and find the health insurance plan that best works with your new Medicare coverage. Getting started is easy. Call me at 314-863-0008, 314-863-0008 to arrange for a free health insurance coaching session, or email me at aaron@jblfinancial.com.
Now is when Coventry turns confusion into clarity. Coventry Healthcare has got a simple approach to care. By listening to their members, Coventry can make plans that work harder for you and your budget. The result? They offer great service and clear costs. If you're looking for a plan that's more about you, give them a call at 1-855-338-9551, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's 1-855-338-9551. Now is the time to call Coventry Healthcare.
Make $9.50 per stop this Valentine's delivering for Walter Knoll Florist. You drive your own vehicle, use your working cell phone, and make $9.50 per stop. Apply right now at WKF.com. That's WKF.com. And make $9.50 per stop this Valentine's Day with Walter Knoll Florist.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, we're back with some more Straight Talk on Retirement here on the Big 550 KTRS. It's what time is it, Big? 10:23.
10:23 and a half.
Very good. And we're here to answer your text questions at 84126 from the text lines, or we'd love to hear your voice, 314-931-5877.
We've got one more text question.
And the texter writes, my wife and I are Missouri residents, and we are both on Medicare, not Medicare Advantage. We are moving to California in 8 months. When moving to a different state in retirement, what advice can you give us as it relates to Medicare? Thank you.
Well, the great news, or the not-so-great news, depending upon how you feel about it, is that you get a do-over. So when you move from one state to another, or from one service area to another, so for example, if you were living in St. Louis and you moved down to the Ozarks, you would leave the St. Louis County service area and enter a new service area. Sorry, Dad, you're distracting me. Sit still. Thank you.
Sorry, babe.
You're going to have what's called a special election period, which will give you the opportunity to select your Medicare supplement all over again. You either get to select a new supplemental policy if you're using a lettered supplement like FGN, or you actually will have the opportunity to take a look at what Medicare Advantage plans are available to you in California in the area that in which you've moved. So most likely what you should do is find a local agent in California that is familiar with the plans, familiar with how they work, both the supplements and the Medicare Advantage plans, that can give you a comparison of your choices. When you change residencies from Missouri to California, you will have 30 days to make a change. If you do it in advance, then your coverage can start immediately. However, if you do it once you move and once you get that new driver's license, you'll have 30 days to make a switch, and it will begin the first of the next month in which you make that change. I definitely recommend using local agents, especially when you make moves to states outside of the Midwest, because it's important to compare what these plans look like. The prices are very different. The plan designs can be very different as well. And it's always nice to work with someone that's local because they can give you more targeted advice. For example, when we have Frank in our office, he's very familiar with all the plans, the hospital systems in this area. You want to be able to find the same level of service when you head out to California. So if you're moving and you have friends or family out there, you might just see if you have a referral from someone that's already enrolled in Medicare and used a professional like Frank when they were out there.
Good question.
Great question.
That's great. Again, our text line is open. We'd love to hear from you, 84126. Also, our phone lines are open, 314-931-5877. We're not taking are we taking our first break or second break of the hour here, babe?
We just did that, remember?
No, I'm having some timers because
really
I think
enjoying that California life, aren't you?
Well, I think you're giving me like these hints. You know, it's like, oh, I'm moving to California. No, I'm not.
What?
I'm not moving to California from Missouri. Sorry.
That was a real text.
That was a real text question.
Yeah, we did not fabricate that for our own benefit.
I'm looking at your mother. I don't know. What can I tell you? Well, great. Again, while we're waiting for your phone calls and texts at 314-931-5877, and again, 84126 from the text line, let's talk about Paul and Judy. And guess what? You don't have to be a rock star, or you can be a rock star and not have $1 million to retire. Pay attention to that orange and white that AIG commercial, right?
Exactly.
And Paul is 64 years old and works for the post office. He's going to turn 65 in May. His wife, Judy, is 63 and is a part-time office manager. They have no mortgage or credit card debt. That is so cool. They just bought a new car, their quote-unquote retirement vehicle. They want help to, number one, getting their finances organized. Number two, making good decisions about health care. And number three, answer the question, can we retire?
You know, I hate to derail the conversation, but I had a coaching session with some current clients just yesterday, and they just bought their first brand new car, not in retirement, just ever. And they were just so excited, and it just warmed my heart because they were not only were they really enjoying it, but you know, we helped them. They were a couple just like Paul and Judy that wasn't really in love with debt, so they didn't have any, and they didn't want to take out a car note in order to purchase their new car. So you know, we really helped them in terms of how to take money from their retirement accounts to minimize taxes, but still get them to exactly where they wanted to go. And it was just really cool to see people really enjoying retirement.
Yeah, it is. And I think, you know, it was curious because I also had a similar coaching session with one of our clients who happens to be recently relocated to Florida to an active adult community. And it was curious because she was saying is that she has a car. She'd like to get rid of it. She's thinking that she's going to replace it with another one. And we had a very interesting conversation about purchasing versus leasing. She recently sold.
Favorites.
Well, yeah, and I think it's an important conversation to have. In her particular case, she had sold her home in Missouri. I encouraged her not to immediately buy something when she went to Florida, but to really get an opportunity to get a lay of the land, figure out where her personal life, et cetera, was going to be, where her doctors are, where she was going to go visit, what were the neighborhoods like, before she jumped back into the fire. And she's been renting for about a year, and she has a rather large lump sum of capital, and kind of thinking, I don't know if I really want to get rid of this money and pay $30,000, $40,000 for a new car. And so we did have a discussion about purchasing versus leasing. I think one of the common misunderstood things about leasing is that when you acquire this car under a lease, what happens is you fixed the residual value or the purchase price of that car should you want to purchase it at the end of the lease. So as I said to her, let's rent, hold on to our capital, and then if you decide at the end of the lease that you love this car and this is going to be your last car, I always chuckle about that. You have an opportunity to do it, and based on the market conditions, you can make a decision. Folks that came out of leases, as an example, or were looking at selling their cars really up until, I guess I want to say probably the first of the year, we're really getting premiums because the inventories on new cars, they just weren't coming in. So used cars became very valuable. Now that we're seeing cars going into the showrooms, that's starting to turn a little bit. So timing can be everything when it comes to this. And, holding on to your capital certainly can be something to consider when you're making that important type of a decision. But what's fun? Rock stars make good decisions. And right. Especially with Paul and Judy, in their case, they didn't have a mortgage. And that's really what, at least in this case, this is really one of those factors that really can lead people to truly be rock stars, which is they have more capital or more cash flow than they need to meet their income needs. And in their case, I thought what was kind of cool is that we really went through the primary question was, can I retire? Or when can I retire? And what are some of the ways that we're going to turn on and off valves, as I like to call them, in terms of cash flow? So, babe, why don't we walk through the numbers?
Sure. So Paul and Judy let us know that they need about $5,000 a month to make their lives work. So what we first needed to do was gross that number up for taxes because the majority of your income in retirement will be taxable. The other reason that we gross up all of your income need for taxes is that we find that this also creates a bit of a buffer for inflation, for extra expenses in retirement, because and I think we've seen this process really working nicely because we haven't seen many clients that are essentially on a fixed income of their own making. They let us know when they retired how much they were going to need every month, and we made sure when we were meeting those income goals to meet that number. Very few, if any, clients have come back to us to say, with inflation, I really need more. So building in a little bit of a buffer, even if all of your income in retirement isn't going to be 100% taxable, really helps to create that hedge for you against inflation. So in Paul and Judy's case, they needed about $5,000 net per month, which means they need about $6,000 gross. We determined that health insurance for Judy was going to be about $800 a month until she reached Medicare eligibility. So we added another $800 into their cash flow plan for this example, which means that for 2 years, they're going to need about $6,800 a month. Paul was lucky enough to be eligible for a pension. He chose, working for the post office. So he's going to bring in $2,000 a month in pension. He's also going to bring in $2,800 a month in Social Security benefits. So this means they will be about $2,000 short for the first several years of retirement. So that means we need $24,000 a year over a 3-year period, which means we need about $72,000 of cash to make sure that that cash flow works for the first 2 years. Or 3 years, my apologies.
Yeah, Judy's Social Security was going to, at 63, is going to run about $1,000 because she was a part-time worker during that period of time. So in reality, at the end of the day, we were looking at about $1,000 a month of shortfall, $12,000 a year. And as we know that using an assumption of a prudent rate of withdrawal of 4%, they would need about $300,000 to create milk money, as we like to call it. The good news for them is that they had significantly more assets. $525,000 in a TSP,
which was Paul's retirement plan through the post office.
Right, $35,000 of Roth IRAs accumulated between the two of them, and also Judy had a $40,000 IRA. They also had additionally about $80,000 of cash savings. So from an initial look, they needed if they were going to, Paul was going to retire, both of them retire, both take their Social Security at the same time. They needed $300,000 of capital, and they obviously had somewhere closer to around $700,000 plus. So they were rock stars. Woohoo!
It's pretty awesome.
Then the questions came, right?
And the first
one. Go ahead, Rob. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say the first question was: should we wait until NRA
which is normal retirement age,
to elect our Social Security benefits? 66 and 10 months and 67.
Well, if they did decide that they wanted to delay their Social Security benefit elections, that would require approximately $24,000 a year for 2 years for Paul, and an additional $12,000 a year for 4 years for Judy. So the total of those numbers were $96,000. Adding that to the $300,000, they were still well within. They had more assets than they needed. So again, they get another woohoo. It's really up to them to decide.
And the really nice thing about Social Security benefits is this is a decision that you get to make every single day after you've reached 62 years old. So this can be a moving target for some individuals. We can game plan multiple scenarios and then make the decision from there. When does it make the most sense to take Social Security benefits? Or secondarily, if we know, just like with Paul and Judy, where they really can make that decision because they have enough capital to support their income needs without Social Security for a period of time, then it really becomes a comfort decision as to when they'd like to elect those benefits.
Yeah, and I would say that, again, there's a hook here. Because the laws have changed in regard to Social Security claiming strategies, Judy, if she was to wait until her normal retirement age, because Paul's benefit was going to be, this at 65 it was basically $2,800. It would certainly have been more closer to $3,000 at 66 and 10 months. If she waited until her normal retirement age of 67, instead of drawing $1,000 a month, she could draw basically $1,500 a month, which is about 50% more. There's obviously a cost of waiting, which is what's the money that we've given up versus longevity. So again, but the hook in the law is that Judy has to wait until Paul makes his election. She can't, for her to access that spousal benefit, right, that spousal claiming strategy, Paul has to be taking his Social Security. So it's neat to have these options, and I would also say that, and honey, we talked about this a little earlier this week, one of our clients who had been with us for a couple of years, and we kind of made the decision that he was going to wait to take his Social Security benefit. His wife was a couple of years older, and she had taken hers, decided to take his benefit because their cash flow needs to change. And their comfort level in terms of cash flow, especially based on today's market, made them come to the decision that they would like to have a bird in hand, which was to elect that Social Security benefit, giving up that couple $100 a month extra by waiting a year or 2 years later. So it isn't a moving target, but what's nice is that, as Aaron was mentioning, by running these scenarios for you, as we like to do on our big whiteboard in the office, we can do then is that we can really make the picture, I think, a little bit brighter and put you in a position where hopefully you can make some good choices. And the truth is, as I said before, we're making all these choices in the moment. You can always look back 2 or 3 years and say, God, was I dumb? But the truth is to say you're not. You did what you thought was right. And making good decisions is always good. But they also had a couple of other issues, right?
Yes, they did. And their second big issue was long-term care. Do we need to think about this, and when?
Good decision, because we know that long-term care really is, we like to think of it like disability income. So the question really became cash flow. How much cash flow could they expect to be receiving when someone became ill? And how much cash flow would they need, not only to support the needs of the, we'll call it the institutionalized or ill spouse versus the well spouse?
Exactly. Also, this is a great timing thing for Paul and Judy because they're just before 65 years old, which is generally when we recommend taking a look at long-term care benefits to begin with. Because Paul and Judy are sitting right at about $700,000 of assets, they definitely fall within the zone in which we would recommend utilizing a long-term care benefit to help protect those assets from spend down if Paul or Judy needed either institutionalized care or at-home care.
Yes, and in their particular case, they obviously had some options. Number one is if they qualified, they certainly could consider purchasing a long-term care insurance contract, which would provide them a cash flow for up to 5 years. That's the maximum these days. On these contracts, should one of them require care either in an institution or at home, or secondarily, because they had a significant amount of after-tax savings, we also could consider the possibility of a asset-based long-term care solution. So some options really were there. And again, as Aaron was saying, what's really important here is the timing. We know that most folks don't fall into a situation where they have to worry about long-term care until usually they're into their 80s. So that means that these folks are looking at possibly paying premiums or having assets allocated for long-term care purposes for about 20 years. But we know that underwriting requirements are stricter for long-term care, not easy to qualify, and that really 65 is actually is a hump point there, isn't it, babe?
It is. So most insurance companies, when you are applying for long-term care benefits, are going to require a phone conversation because essentially what they're doing is they're checking your cognitive skills to ensure that you're not already potentially in need of claims or would potentially create claims for the insurance company. Once you reach 65 years old, they increase that threshold by not only requiring a phone conversation, but they'll often do an in-home visit to just make sure that you are still able to walk up and down stairs. No one has like a hospital bed in the living room where you're already in a situation where you might potentially need to utilize the long-term care benefit. They also want to make sure that your home is in order because, again, a cognitive issue is an automatic qualifier for long-term care benefits, whereas individuals that have physical issues are going to need to lose 2 activities of daily living in order to qualify for their long-term care benefit.
Good point there. So, again, it isn't as easy as it used to be, and at the same time, you don't want to buy too young, as an example. So we've talked a little bit about their cash flow planning. We talked about the possibility of delaying Social Security immediate election, which is an important thing to do. One other thing that's extremely important in their situation, as well as everybody else's, is talking about planning for future projects. Whether it's educational, maybe assisting children and or grandchildren with educational costs, whether it's something fun like a boat, home improvements, etc. Defining those amounts and putting a date on them when you would like to reach these goals, and, or as I like to say, fill those jars, it's a good thing to do. What it does is it puts us as planners in a position where what we can do is plan for that jar to be full at the time that you need it. The process that Aaron and I use, it really kind of is a two-tier one. We're looking at client income needs, and then also projects, as we like to call them. So generally what happens is every 6 months we rebalance portfolios. At that time, what we do is we make sure that there's sufficient cash available to pay out 6 months' worth of our clients' income goal needs. At the same time, also fund those projects that happen during that 6-month time period. When we get to large projects, especially whether it's a boat or whether it's a home remodel, whether it's an automobile replacement, etc., a lot of times we may be looking at having to do this over multiple periods. And the reason being, as we talked about before, and really a couple examples today, large amounts of cash generally are, for most of our clients, are really the source of that cash is the retirement accounts. So there's obviously taxation that's involved. And so we have a lot of things to think about here, not only federal income tax, but in many cases, especially if our clients, and most of them are at some point in time, to become over age 65 Medicare eligible, we've got to worry about Medicare Part B premiums. Would you agree, babe?
That's absolutely right. So we discussed appeals for Medicare Part B premium increases. So for everyone, there is a base Medicare premium where it's about $170 this year. If you are married and filing jointly, basically $194,000 is the initial threshold for your Medicare Part B premiums. You'll fall within that base. If you earn more than that, or you are taxed on more than that because you're withdrawing money from a retirement account, then that Medicare Part B premium can increase for 1 year. However, you don't see that until 2 years after you've made the decision. So, for example, if Paul and Judy needed over $100,000 from their retirement account and they pulled that out all in 1 year, 2023, they won't actually see their Medicare Part B premium increase until 2025. And unfortunately, it's going to be on both of them. It's not just on the individual whose IRA you may have withdrawn the money from. So they consider that a household income in determining your Medicare Part B premium. It would only last 1 year, but it is an additional tax that you're going to have to pay on distributions. So when we're looking at large distributions from taxable accounts, not only are we trying to look at tax brackets in the year in which we make that distribution, we're also comparing that to Medicare Part B premium increase potential as well.
You know, that's a very good point. And I was going to say, most folks may be thinking, well, hey, that's not me. But what's interesting is that we've certainly seen over the last 10 years that it isn't unusual for a family farm, piece of property maybe to be sold, for someone to sell their business, which can create large amounts of unforeseen taxable income. And again, it's about timing, being cognizant of what's happening, then obviously planning for that. And then the last thing that we certainly look at, the issue is asset allocation. Are our investments aligned in such a way that not only are they meeting our tolerance for risk, but also to really meet our long-term goals? And this is something that we certainly we monitor, and we continue to do constantly, because having a portfolio that gives you an opportunity to earn more than 4%, which is really what we would consider a moderate portfolio, is something that's required. And in Paul's case, curiously, and not, I guess, that curiously, he's currently 100% in the G fund, which is the government securities fund. So not earning as much as what the potential rate of withdrawal was. So what we're probably going to be doing, I'm sure, is over a period of time is, as I like to say, coaxing the bear out of the cave, getting reinvested over a long haul, so that what we can do is make those withdrawals, frankly, sustainable and being covered by the growth and or interest earnings on the account. So that's a good one. I think, babe, if it's okay for me to suggest, it really is now time maybe to consider taking our second break of the hour. What do you think?
Let's do it. And when we come back, we've got a great Social Security text question on board.
Don't touch that dial. Aaron, Rob, and I will be right back.
If you're turning 65 this year, you face one of the most critical choices for your retirement game plan: enrolling in Medicare Part B and choosing your Medicare supplement. I will help you safely navigate this process and find the health insurance plan that best works with your new Medicare coverage. Getting started is easy. Call me at 314-863-0008, 314-863-0008 to arrange for a free health insurance coaching session, or email me at aaron@jblfinancial.com.
It's the most wonderful time of the year, football playoffs. And whether your game is college or pro, watch the next big match with a Dogtown pizza. Root for my favorite, pepperoni and peppercini, or Heidi's favorite, the veggie. Or why not have both while you root for your favorite team? With over 11 different varieties, you can have a different pizza every week and stock up for that big game at the end. It's the most wonderful time of the year, and I'm rooting for Dogtown Pizza.
Now is when Coventry turns confusion into clarity. Coventry Healthcare has got a simple approach to care. By listening to their members, Coventry can make plans that work harder for you and your budget. The result? They offer great service and clear costs. If you're looking for a plan that's more about you, give them a call at 1-855-338-9551, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's 1-855-338-9551. Now is the time to call Coventry Healthcare.
Hi, this is John Shea from the Inside Out Show. If you need an electrician, whether it's residential or commercial, Baldy Electric at 314-968-9999 or baldyelectric.com is who you should call. I've been using Baldy Electric in my business for quite a few years now, and I couldn't be happier. They handle all my clients' needs, and they are so easy to work with. They do panel replacements and upgrades, generators for the whole house, service calls to replace those bulbs that you can't even reach, adding a sound system inside or out. If you have aluminum or knob and tube wiring, they can do the repairs, the ones that somebody else tried to but really didn't. Whether it's residential or commercial, Baldy Electrics have the electricians that know what to do and how to comply with all the codes. You can feel safe knowing the electricians from Baldy Electric wired your home or business. Baldy Electric at 314-968-9999 or baldyelectric.com is the company you want to call. That's Baldy Electric.
Now, back to Straight Talk on Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here are Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Woohoo! It's 10:52 here on the Big 550 KTRS Talk Radio St. Louis. We've got about 7 minutes left. Answer your text questions at 84126 from the text line. Or we'd love to hear your voice because you've been listening to ours. 314-931-5877.
And our text line is blowing up, so let's get to our first one. If someone gets married after starting their Social Security, does that affect the amount for either the person or the spouse?
No. The great news is if you are already taking your Social Security benefits and you are getting married, then it does not impact your benefit, nor does it impact your spouse's benefit. Now, the important thing to remember is it actually provides an additional benefit to either you or your new spouse, which is when either of you pass away, you'll have the opportunity to maintain the larger benefit. You'll be eligible for the survivor benefit. The one other thing to keep in mind is there is the possibility that it could affect your Social Security benefit if you were electing a survivor benefit off of a spouse that had passed away. You will no longer be able to take that spousal benefit. If you are married, you'll have to switch over to your own benefit. So that is the only scenario in which you might receive less.
I don't think so.
No?
No.
You don't like that answer?
I love the answer. It was technically accurate, but what you forgot was
what?
Now you got to share.
Well, not really. You both get your own benefit.
Get your own benefit. Oh, that's
well,
great.
The question was, do they get less? The answer is yeah. Now they got to share.
Okay, anyway, I guess that's psychologically less.
Uh-huh. Well, ask your mother what's hers is hers and what's mine is hers. So that's just that's married life. What can I tell you?
It's reasonable. We got more.
We have another text.
Yeah, we do.
Go for it. Go for it.
Retired and monthly income from Social Security and pension is $5,000, and that's what is needed to live on. How much liquid cash should we have available?
As much as you can.
I would say I would say that our rule of thumb is at least 6 to 12 months worth of your monthly income need.
I was thinking that exactly. A good baseline number would be good 6 months of your needs put aside
about
just in
$30,000
case.
in this case, exactly.
You're so bright, that's why I call you daughter. Okay.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
And
is that it? One more? We have one or two more?
Way
Great.
more than one or two more.
They're coming in. If I have several investments inside my IRA, how do you decide which ones to sell when executing an RMD?
Well, that's easy.
Is it?
The ones you don't like. The ones you don't like, right? Yeah, certainly it's an opportunity to refresh or rebalance your portfolio. So I look at it a couple ways. Number one is, am I heavy? Stock versus bonds, cash, etc. That would be one thing to do. That would be a smart thing to do. Second is a way to get rid of the stinkers, right? Keep the good stuff and get rid of the not so good stuff, and then you'll have an opportunity to look at it, rebalance it, hopefully at least twice a year.
Right, so if you're someone that hasn't rebalanced your portfolio in a while, this might give you the opportunity to bring it back in balance by making a sale of a specific security that's bringing you out of balance, or, like my dad just said, if there's something in there that you haven't liked looking at for a while, maybe it's time to get rid of it.
Very good.
And moving on to our next one. I am 72 and no longer working. I have extra funds available. Can I put more money into my Roth IRA?
Unfortunately, if you no longer have earned income, so some people in retirement do have earned income. They've maybe taken a part-time job, or we even have clients that are helping out their children start their family businesses. If you have any earned income, you can put up to your earned income amount, or $7,000 because you're over the age of 50 into a Roth IRA this year. You can't exceed your annual income amount. However, if you don't have any earned income, then unfortunately you're not going to be eligible to contribute to a Roth.
True.
And
very true.
Our next texter writes, I have a Medicare Advantage plan. I'm taking my grandkids to Orlando this summer. My wife asked me if one of us needs medical attention, will we be covered since we're outside the network area?
This is a great question, and the good news is that just like with your health insurance when you were working, or if you had individual health insurance before you got to 65, Medicare Advantage plans work the same way. If you are in an emergent situation, you are going to have access to in-network benefits no matter where you are. If you have an urgent situation, so you don't think you need the ER, but you need urgent care, so for example, someone comes down with a flu or gets a little bit nauseous from all of the rides in Orlando, then you can go to an urgent care inside the United States, and that will be covered in-network as well. It's also important to remember that if you go to the urgent care and they shuttle you off to the ER, or you go to the ER and they admit you to the hospital, anything that you do will also be covered as in-network for you. The only time when you are outside of a service area and you're looking for care and you have to make sure that you have in-network providers would be if you are doing something voluntarily. So instead of going to the Magic Kingdom, you decide that you'd like to see a dermatologist, you're probably not going to be covered while you're in Florida.
And we have an add-on to a previous question, and the texter writes, should the liquid cash be at the house or in the bank in savings?
Okay, this is fabulous. It's because we only got a few seconds left. We have some clients that do elect to hold some of their savings in a safe or a vault at home. You definitely want to make sure that it's fire protected, but generally we recommend that you use a local bank or credit union to hold those excess savings. Some people, for protection or their own security, like to hold some excess cash at home, but I would say that's not where you want to hold the bulk of your liquid savings. And with that, the other thing you want to make sure of is tuning into our show next week at 9 a.m. We will see you then. Give us a call, 314-863-0008.
voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBI